If you're over 40 years old, you've got an obligation to make $1 million. You got an obligation to your family, to the people that you can impact to make $1 million. Because when you're over 40 years old, you have gained what's called wisdom. And the perspective that you have right now should be shared with the people around you. It should be shared with the next generation. It should be shared with your kids. And if you're stuck in a 9-to-5 and you're not happy, this is key. If you're not happy and you're just going through the motions to create a life that is full of redundancy, monotony, and you're just not happy and satisfied with what you have become, then it's your obligation to make millions of dollars. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you and teach you specifically what you need to do to have mindset shifts to make you feel like you're worthy of having $1 million, make you feel like you're capable of having $1 million or making millions of dollars a year. And I'm going to give you some tactical things here in just a little bit that changed my life as I was on my journey to make millions of dollars. I made my first $1 million when I was 37 years old. I struggled as an entrepreneur up until that point, and then I figured it out when I was 35 and put everything on turbocharge. I'm 40 years old now, and I've made millions of dollars over the last 3 years. Let's get into it. All right, you guys, if you don't know who I am, my name is Scott Simpson. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Graffiti. I'm not selling you any courses or programs or anything on this channel. My YouTube channel sells courses and programs on how to grow YouTube channels. This channel is specifically to talk to you guys about what I have learned that has helped me grow tremendously as a man into my masculine frame, as an entrepreneur to be worth millions of dollars. I've been able to accomplish incredible things over the last number of years. I have 4 kids, 18, 16, 10, and almost 8, and life is crazy. Life is full. As a 40-year-old man, I can empathize with you that life is not always easy. Life is not always just like rainbows and butterflies and incredible things. We have arguments with our spouses. We have arguments with our kids, stress that comes through work. But what if you could mitigate that stress, remove a lot of that stress, at least the financial portion of that, by becoming rich? I decided to buy these little notebooks so that way when I have ideas, I can write this stuff down. So if you see me glancing at this, then just know I'm not perfect. Number one, for guys who are in their 40s, who've been working at the same job for the last 10, 15, 20 years, and you're convinced that just seeing it through until you get your retirement, you've built up your 401k to the point that you can leave with a couple $1 million or a few $100,000 and retire in a comfortable way, that's conditioning. That's not the only path forward. We have been convinced that we need to be a cog in the wheel of someone else's game, of someone else's dream. You think about it, that's how we've been educated our entire lives, especially if you grew up in a household where your father worked 40 years and then retired, right? We go to school, we become part of a cog in a machine of the education system that teaches us how to fall in line, that teaches us how to be orderly, that teaches us how to take direction. So the first thing that you need to understand, you've been convinced and conditioned to believe that this is the path that most people should take. And any deviation from the path makes you an outlier, makes you an outcast, somebody who's off doing their own thing. And it makes you feel really weird and uncomfortable, especially when your friends and your family are all part of that system, because they don't have the same mindset. They don't have the same mentality that you do. So what it ends up doing is it forces us to toe the line and fall back into order. But when you get to 40, something happened to me specifically when I hit 40. I had this realization that life is finite. Now, I've been an entrepreneur again for the last 20 years, and so I've always been working towards building a dream that has limitless potential. But when I hit 40, it was like 20 years are behind me now, and I have 20 more working years ahead of me. Am I doing what I want to be doing? Or is there something that's better that I could be doing for the next 20 years? This is why a whole bunch of men fall into midlife crisis mode. It's because you get into this monotony with your family, with your kids, with the routine of extracurriculars and making dinner every night and going to bed the same way and watching the same shows and waking up and exercising and doing your cold bath challenges. There are things that you incorporate into that system every once in a while that kind of tweak and change and evolve it, but for the most part, it's the same thing over and over and over again. It gets freaking boring, right? And so a lot of you men that are out there hit this midlife crisis mode where you're like, my life sucks. I'm not doing what I want to be doing. And then you start chasing other things and in a toxic way. There's better ways to handle that. There are better ways to handle that, I promise you. But a lot of that comes because we're conditioned to believe that we're not worthy of more. Conditioned to believe that we should fall in line. One of the advantages that you have as a 40-year-old man, I'm talking to men, but this works for women as well. These issues are things that are felt by men more than women from the provider standpoint, right? Because traditional gender roles would say men are providers. I believe that. The advantage that you have is that at this point in life, you know that nothing comes easy, right? Remember when we were full of hopes and dreams when we were in high school and we were like, oh my gosh, if I could just make $1 million, I could be rich and I could retire and blah, blah, blah. And then you get into the workforce and you realize that making $1 million is freaking hard, right? And so you settle into a life of routine and monotony. The advantage that you have that kids don't have is that you have a perspective now, a perspective that says nothing comes easy, right? And so you grind. So you realize like it's okay to grind, and you have grinded at certain things. Grounded. You're used to grinding for things that you want. The kids that are out there are not. Now, there are kids who are in their 18, 20, 21, 22 who have stumbled upon success, who have found ways to create products and services that pay them millions of dollars a year. I personally work with kids who are in their early 20s who make millions of dollars a year. It's annoying because I realize they have zero perspective on life other than making money. And I also realize and recognize that these kids are going to be totally screwed up when they get into the 30s and 40s because money has no meaning. They're buying these crazy Rolex watches and Lamborghinis and all sorts of things right now when they're young, and it gives them a completely spoiled perspective on money. You have a perspective on money. You have a respect for money. You have respect for it. The thing that you don't have yet is the knowledge and the ability to turn what you know into revenue. That's what you haven't figured out. That's what you don't know how to do. And at this point in your life, you're saying, hey, it's easier for me to just work my 40-hour work week and just keep making the same amount of money that I've always been making, as opposed to putting myself out there, grinding and building out something that I can sell, right? But your perspective gives you an advantage. Your knowledge, your wisdom, the education that you've received doing what you've been doing for the last 20 years gives you an advantage over these young bucks who are making money. And it also gives you a respect. And it also gives you integrity. These young kids, who learn how to sales, as soon as I learned how to sell, I realized how dangerous of a skill it is to have, how much responsibility you have to not take advantage of people when you're in the sales process. It's very easy for good salespeople to manipulate people into purchasing something. All you have to do is sell a dream to somebody. And if you sell a dream and put enough pressure and use psychological tactics, you can get people to do anything you want. Man, that is a dangerous skill to have for young people, because young people don't have that moral compass. They don't have the integrity. They don't have 4 kids that they're putting through school and a spouse they have to take care of. And they haven't been ripped off, and they don't know how it feels to be stolen from. 40 years old, you know all of these things. That gives you a perspective that gives you integrity. You know what I'm saying? That makes sense, you guys? The next thing that I want to talk about is your moral justification for not getting rich is programming, right? So a lot of us will look at rich people. A lot of us who don't have a lot of wealth. And I did the exact same thing. A lot of us who don't have a lot of wealth or weren't raised with wealth will look at rich people and think that they're morally justified for not becoming rich because rich people are douchebags, or they have egos, or they're all about the money. And in some cases, that's the truth. But that is no reason to not chase wealth. That's not a valid reason for not chasing wealth, because if it were a valid reason, basically what you would be saying is that every person who becomes rich is a douchebag. And if everybody who becomes rich is a douchebag and the rich people are running the world, do we want a whole bunch of douchebags running the world? No, we don't. How many of you guys have ever met a rich person who is just a really solid human being? They're just a good person. There are millions of those types of people out there. We need more good people to become rich. Your moral justification for not being rich needs to switch to, it is morally my obligation to become rich because I am a good person and good people run the world. And we need more good people who are rich, so that way there are more people who are running the world who are good people. Does that make sense? I think that made sense. Made sense to me. It's programming. You need to take that out of your head. Money is the root of all evil. That's not what it says. The love of money is the root of all evil. Don't love money. You still can make a lot of money. You don't love money. Put money before God and you have problems. All right, tactical guys. I created a whole video on this. It's right up here. So if you guys want to watch that video, I highly recommend that. But the things that you need to realize are, number one, if you're working 40 hours a week and that's all that you want to work, you're leaving so much time on the table, right? When I was building my business, I had 2 full-time jobs and I would work sometimes 18 hours a day. If you want to get get out of the life that you're in, you need to have a side hustle. You need to have a side hustle that has no cap. You need to learn how to sell. You need to learn how to sell a product that has zero cap and you can make unlimited amount of commission. Once you learn how to sell, the doors open up. The floodgates open up. That's when you realize that you have unlimited potential. When you learn how to sell, you have to be able to sell in order to make millions of dollars. So this is probably a good stopping point because I don't want to get into the intricacies of building out a program or anything like that. You don't need any of that stuff. What you need to do is go and find something that you can sell that's high ticket that you can get a commission on. Sales is key. They need to learn how to get leads. The 3 books that I would recommend reading right now in order to learn all this stuff and start your side hustle: Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson, $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi, and $100 Million Leads by Alex Hormozi. And there's also like The Art of Sales and all these different books. But if you're not educating yourself on these things and you're saying, hey, you know, I'm not going to educate myself or I'm not going to chase any of this stuff, then you're not meant to make millions of dollars. And that's totally fine. I mean, there are a lot of people who aren't going to make millions of dollars. But if you want to make millions of dollars, this is where I suggest starting. You guys, if you want to watch the video where I talk about going from 0 to $1 million, check it out. It's right here. Catch you on the next one. Bye.